What was your paranormal experience? I used to work for a company where working overtime and staying at the office overnight to finish reports for clients was normal. One particularly grueling night, my teammate and I decided to sleep in one of the meeting rooms. I lied down on the floor, with a shawl over the carpet, turned on my side, when I suddenly smelled a strong, fragrant scent, as if perfume was sprayed right in front of my face. I asked my teammate, who was at the opposite end of the room, if she smelled it too, but she said no. I stood up and tried to locate the source of the scent. It was baffling, since the door of the meeting room was closed, and when I checked, no one was outside. It could not have come from the aircon vents, since the air conditioning in our building gets turned off at 7 p.m., and it was around 2 or 3 a.m. already. Puzzled, I lied down, but then I smelled it again. As strange as it sounds, it frightened me, and it might have been obvious to my teammate because she called my name and asked me to sleep beside her. Days after, in the middle of a conversation with my teammate, she quietly asked if I wanted to know what I had smelled that night. Nervous but curious, I nodded. She said a ghost followed us inside the room and lied down beside me. Its face was directly in front of mine. My home I lived in prior to the one now had been a bit weird from the start. By all terms, normal but a strange vibe after about a year of living in it. I was sleeping on the couch one night, which I often did if I did not want to go to my room after watching TV for a while. I woke up consistently throughout the night feeling as if someone was brushing their hair away from my eyes. It felt like a very tender action, like a mother would to their child. The only person I've lost close to me is my great-grandmother. She used to do that when I was little while I slept, so I can't help to think that maybe she was checking up on me. This occurred again a few nights later and never again. After that, my dog, who had slept with me on the couch those nights, never felt comfortable sleeping throughout the night on the couch. She would actually get up and hide somewhere, which is very out of character for her, since she sticks to me like glue. My mother had much stranger experiences. She was in the kitchen at night after hearing a loud bang and going to check to see what it was. She said she saw this black shadow that looked like a little boy run from the kitchen, extremely fast, to the downstairs and disappear. She heard this shadow giggle. She had honestly thought it was my little brother until she went and checked on him, and he was fast asleep in his room. I was watching TV one night when my mother called for me from her room. She had went to bed hours ago, so I was confused why she was awake. I go in and she said she saw this all-white figure. She described it as a woman shrouded in white veils and fabric that seemed to have a bright light shining behind her, stand behind me and put their hands on my shoulders. She was terrified, but I didn't see a thing. She said the reason she called me was because this white figure had appeared at her door and started having a conversation with her. Just a regular conversation. The weird part was that she said the white figure was speaking in my voice, and because she was just asleep and woke up by this figure, she had thought it was me until she opened her eyes and saw it wasn't. She said the figure disappeared once I walked over to my mom and out of the grasp of the white figure, who had their hands on my shoulders. I experienced things in my room. My TV would turn on and off. Mind you, there is no remote for this TV. You have to get up and press the buttons on the TV to change volume and station. Same thing with my fan, although the fan only appeared to be pushed lightly to make it spin, not turned on. My dog, who sleeps with me nightly, would wake up from her sleep, look out across my room, and start growling. At our new house, we were talking about how we like these light fixtures in our house. The one light started swinging back and forth. I've always wondered why I've had these weird experiences and what they mean. After a night out with friends, we went back to my house where we all fell asleep. I pass out in my bed while my friends are asleep on couches around the house. I have a vivid dream where my house was also home to a little kid's ghost. The house was similar to mine in real life, but the layout of the house was slightly different. In my dream, my friends were over, and they also saw this ghost child and were freaked out. I told them it was okay and that they just wanted to play hide and seek. So I would count as the ghost would run and hide, and I would go find them. They would giggle and run away and hide again. My friends and I are hanging out again a few days later, and something reminds me of the dream I had. So I explain my dream to them. My friend looks at me wide-eyed and says, "Shut the flurbo up. Who told you?" I look at him confused. He explains how he and his girlfriend couldn't sleep because they kept hearing little kids' footsteps, giggling, and doors opening and closing where doors don't exist in my house. When I was 6 years old, we lived in a haunted duplex. Our cousins lived on one side and we lived on the other. I'm pretty sure it was the family that lived there before us that was haunting us. At least that's what I was told. So during that time, my dad would wake up very early in the morning. I think maybe 4 or 5 a.m. to go to work. All I remember was that it was still dark out. I was a daddy's little girl, so it was our tradition to wake up, eat breakfast together, and then he'd leave for work and I'd go back to sleep. But one day, I woke up and saw a dark figure standing at the frame of my door. It turned and left. I thought it was my dad, so I followed it out of my room, down the hall. But when I got to the stairs to go down to the living room, the lights were all off. I thought maybe my dad was in a hurry and just left without eating breakfast with me, so I turned around and went back to bed. This happened a few more times and each time, I kept getting up and trying to catch my dad. Then one day, I confronted my dad and asked why he kept leaving and didn't wait for me. My dad became very confused and asked what I meant. I told him that I kept seeing him walk down the hall and leaving without waiting for me. He became concerned and said he had quit his job for a while now. I think my parents knew something was off, as I became very sick in a very short span of time. I had gotten so sick, I missed so much schooling that the school said if I didn't go back soon, I'd be expelled. Our religion was shamanism back then. We believed in spirits and would pray to our ancestors. My parents enlisted the help of a shaman to perform a ritual and see if they could determine who or what the figure was and what it wanted. We learned it was the ghost of the women that used to live there. The family that lived there before us all died in a fatal car accident. The shaman said she wanted to take my soul. For this to stop, for me to stop seeing the figure and get better, I had to stop following it. At the time, I was too young, and my parents didn't want to scare me, so they didn't tell me. They actually told me this when I was much older. So that night after the ritual, my parents had me sleep with them in their room. I didn't question it because, kids. Again, I wake up and see the shadow and I get up to follow it. But right as I got halfway through the room, my dad woke up and called out to me, "Where are you going?" "I'm right here," so I stopped in my tracks, turned around, got in bed and went to sleep. After that, I never saw the figure again and made a quick recovery. I think my parents took it seriously because later when my parents told me of what happened, my mom confessed that she had a dream she and a lady she didn't know were arguing. My mom was in her bedroom and the lady was standing outside the door. The lady was standing in the shadow so my mom couldn't see her face, but my mom saw her waist and below, and she was wearing a long skirt. She was yelling at my mom to get out of her house, and my mom was yelling back that this is our house now. At the time, I was never scared, never felt like anything bad was going to happen to me. But now thinking back, it gave me the heebie-jeebies. The house has been torn down now. It's not even there anymore, just a flat land of grass. Whenever my siblings and I drive past it, we always say that it was probably torn down due to no one being able to live in it because of the hauntings. There was a restaurant in my hometown called Madison's that was built into an old hospital, now converted to many businesses. Madison's and the rest of the bottom floor in particular had been the morgue. After ordering our food, my sister and I got into a habit of exploring the stairwells and empty hallways of the abandoned hospital upstairs. When we would get to the second flight of stairs, it was often taped off, warning customers not to adventure any further. We would often jump this tape and sneak around with our little hearts beating in our throats for fear of being caught. One night, we had jumped the tape and we were peering around a corner of the hallway. We could hear someone coming. We quickly hid ourselves but continued to watch the hallways from the little sliver of view we had without being seen. Along comes this nun. We only saw the back of her. She was methodically walking the halls and doing her rounds. We waited for her to get far enough past that we could run away down the stairs without being heard. I had assumed for years that there must have been some sort of religious Catholic daycare or something of the like on that floor. Fast forward about 10 years, and I'm randomly on Google looking up ghost stories and haunted places in my hometown. I see an article about a nun ghost who walks the halls of the old Catholic hospital that's now converted into restaurants, various businesses. I realized that there haven't been nuns there since back in the early 1900s. At this point, it dawns on me that what my sister and I saw was her ghost. We weren't afraid at the time. She seemed so real. Ever since then, I believe fully that paranormal activity is a very real thing. I personally believe these ghosts only reveal themselves when they are least expected and not instigated. I've had at least 2 experiences in my current apartment. The first happened when I was sitting in my bed in my room. My dad was in my living room vacuuming and shut the door. I felt something grab the back of the collar of my shirt and start pulling it up. At first I froze and was unsure until I felt it tight against my throat. I quickly swatted behind my head thinking maybe my brother was in my room messing with me. When I looked, no one was there. This is the terrifying part. I'm paralyzed, so I can't just run out of the room. I yell for my dad to open the door and leave it open because it freaked me out. The second time happened when I was dating this girl. She was basically living with me at the time. I was playing Xbox and she let me know she was going out back to smoke. I told her I was gonna get off the game and get a shower. She went out the back door and I got in my shower. I remember leaving the door to the bathroom unlocked in case she wanted to come in to talk to me or join me. I'm showering and someone comes in and shuts the door. I think it's her. Sits on my toilet with the lid down to talk, so I'm talking to her. Then, I get a knock at the front door. I ask her if she can get that, and no response. I remember wanting to check if she was there, but when I reached for the curtain, I had this bad feeling in my gut. I shouted for her to get the door, thinking maybe she left the bathroom without me knowing. I got no response. Suddenly, I hear the door burst open, quick and heavy footsteps, and the bathroom door bursts open. It was her. She was hysterical, crying, and beyond freaked out. She had my keys, which she used to unlock the bathroom door and immediately locked it back. She asked me if I locked her out and said, "Please tell me you locked me out." I explained I hadn't, that I had been in the shower since she went outside. This made her freak out even more. She said while she was out back, she heard the door lock. She thought maybe I was mad at her or something and checked. It was in fact locked and she couldn't get in. She went to the front door to knock and when she heard me, she realized I didn't know she was still out there. She freaked out, banging on the windows to get my attention. She went back into the backyard and heard the door unlock. She tried it, the door opened and she ran straight in without shutting it. She couldn't get into the bathroom because the door was locked. I explained that I hadn't locked it in case she wanted to join me or just talk. This freaked her out more, giving her shivers and she said, "I'm not going back out there without you." I get out of the shower, check the entire apartment, closets, everything, and lock the back door. She stayed with me in the bathroom while I finished showering. When I was little, I used to go to bed at 8 p.m. My mom would enter my room while I was sleeping and put my laundry away. Every time she came in, I'd say, "Mommy?" And she'd respond and kiss me goodnight. Every once in a while, I would be startled awake from my door being open and the hallway light on. I vividly remember a black figure standing next to my dresser. So I said, "Mommy?" But it disappeared and my door would close. I was too young to understand, so I would just go back to bed. I specifically remember it only happening 3 times. The first time, it looked like my mom, might have even been her, but it disappeared after I said "Mommy." Second time, I remember it clearly being a black figure, it disappeared. The third time it was a black figure. It didn't look human. It was hunched over, but this time, it looked at me then disappeared. After the third time, I was really scared, so I ran to my mom and from then on, stopped going to bed at 8. I had a lot of paranormal experiences when I was little. Up until 4th grade, I was petrified to go to sleep because stuff like that would happen. When I was maybe 5 years old, I shared a room with my mother, but had my own bed. I woke up in the middle of the night and at the foot of my bed, saw what looked like a very blurry human torso that seemed to be lightly glowing and floating about 2 feet off the floor, then moving left to right about a foot each way. I say torso because its arms and legs didn't seem to have hands or feet. Deathly quiet, no sounds, no smells, no temperature change, just hovering back and forth. I couldn't move at first, but finally got the courage and timed my escape as it moved the farthest away from my escape route. I flew out of my bed and jumped into my mother's bed and woke her up. She lifted herself up and looked, was quiet for a little bit, then said that it was nothing and to go back to sleep. Fast forward 17 years, my fiancé, now my wife and mother of my children, are visiting with my mother says, "Hey son, do you remember when you woke me up and pointed to the ghost in our old house?" I had never described it to her, but she nailed it. I asked her what? You saw it too? I'm getting goosebumps and chills thinking about it. She saw it, but couldn't think of a way to explain it to a 5-year-old, so she told me to go back to sleep. All those years, I struggled to rationalize what I saw.